Allah, we should be good to go. Alhamdulillah. So sometimes the technology can be very challenging to get things going, but then when you have it, we're good to go, inshallah. So, assalamu alaikum, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you very much, Hajj, for joining us, and thank you for your patience. The Hajj was telling me earlier that this is the first time that he's doing a live on Instagram, and so we're honored by his presence, especially with this topic that we're going to take a look at today. So bear with us while we had to figure out a few things, but inshallah we're up and going now. Alhamdulillah wa shukr. So this was an interesting topic that we wanted to explore, and we wanted to have strong Islamic as well as psychological mental well-being discussion about it, because it impacts us on so many levels. It impacts us from whether it's a family, whether it's at school, whether in the workplace, and also at a global level, especially now through cyberbullying, especially through the internet. And we know the impact of that on young people as well as any age, including specific genders as well. So we're going to, inshallah, explore the topic of bullying, which essentially means to seek harm, intimidate, or coerce anybody who's deemed as vulnerable. And so here in Canada, some of the statistics we have show that 19%, or rather, sorry, Canada has the 9th highest rate of bullying in the 13-year-old category on a scale of 35 countries. So that's pretty high here. And that at least 1 in 3 adolescent students in Canada have reported being bullied recently. And so this is really concerning when you see how that happens. And also 7% of adult internet users in Canada age, 18 years or older, self-reported to have been bullied or been a victim specifically of cyberbullying at some point in their life. And so especially now during the pandemic, where we're all online doing the work that we're doing, whether it's schoolwork, whether it's actual work, or doing different programs, and just the interactions that we're having with different people, this becomes more of an issue there. The other topic, inshallah, we're going to explore is harassment. And essentially what that means is aggressive pressure or intimidation. This could include verbal as well as sexual harassment, which is what we hear most often when we hear that word. And so this is where 19%, again, Canadian statistics, 19% of women, 13% of men report workplace harassment in a recent StatsCan survey. And so the most common form of harassment was the verbal harassment. And both the, men and women, with 13% of women and 10% reporting. So you see here that it's mostly women that we hear that are reporting these types of harassments or bullying. And finally, we're going to explore slander. So this is making false and damaging statements about somebody or defaming them. And as I was looking up, researching this a little bit, it was interesting to see that this is a legal matter as well. And there's this goes into subtitles. So libel is the defamation with a permanent record, such as an email, radio, or TV broadcast, newspaper, or website posting. And slander in itself is defamation with no permanent record, such as a spoken statement or even a hand gesture. So it's interesting to see how different they are, but in the end, they're all damaging. They all hurt people's feelings, of course. They all impact people at the psychological level in terms of impacting them with pain, their self-esteem, but it also can impact people in terms of depression, and it could lead people, and we've seen this unfortunately, where people unfortunately have taken their lives because of feeling isolated, being bullied upon and just pushed out, and making them feel vulnerable and just not worthy. And so you see a lot of this with young people. So I just want to make sure before we continue, can everybody hear us clearly? Can I have a thumbs up from Instagram? And I'm just double checking because I'd hate for the Hajj to speak and it turns out that this whole time it wasn't recording. So I just want to make sure. Okay, Instagram, alhamdulillah, is good. Let me just double check. Okay, we're good on Facebook. Somebody mentioned that it's not there on YouTube. That's okay. If it's not there, I can always upload it there later. I do see it, so it should be there. Khair, inshallah. So this was a little bit of a brief intro in terms of the topic and also from a psychological mental health perspective. And of course, with us, we have Hajj Hassanain Rajabali, who is the director of the WISE Institute, as well as the famous Camp Taha in the USA. And without further ado, we'd like to welcome Hajj, and thank you so much for your patience while we figured out. I know it's not the same way that we've done it in the Enlight TV programs that we've done, but inshallah, moving forward now with the discussion, it'll be smoother. So welcome, Hajj, and we'd love to hear your perspective from it, an Islamic perspective, inshallah.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yeah, thank you for doing this program, and inshallah, we will hopefully open up this dialogue, because this behavioral problem of slander, bullying, harassment are major problems that cause people to actually not progress in life. And if there's one thing that devastates the human being psyche and their ability to achieve what God has created them for, it is precisely this. And that is why the Quran emphatically condemns this in so many ways, that the slanderer, humazatin lumaza, the slanderer and the backbiter, wailin likulli humazatin lumaza. God condemns it, and it's very, very important for us to discuss the causes of why these kinds of behavior exists. How can we counter it, and how do we sort of protect ourselves from these kinds of problems? Because this problem is as old as the human race. I mean, Qabil killed Habil. I mean, that's essentially abuse also, to kill somebody, right? So you find that, the first human beings, children, started this also. So what is the reason behind it? So I think it's a good thing to talk about. And inshallah, we'll have a dialogue. And hopefully when we do have this discussion, that, more interactively, so that those who are listening can sort of jump in and sort of make a comment to say, hey, we understand what you're saying, but how about from this angle? How do we tackle this? Because sometimes we may be presenting it only from one angle, and it may require more angles.
Exactly. And it's interesting also to see from a historical Islamic aspect that we see the early Muslims were bullied, were harassed, and there was even slander because of their belief in the one God, especially in a time of polytheism. So can you elaborate a little bit more about that and how that impacted back then, and including the slander against Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam after, but how interesting we see that in our own Islamic history as well.
Yeah, I don't think that the slander and the bullying that took place in the Prophet's lifetime was because of idolatry versus monotheism. I think it stems from human nature. So no matter what side you hold on to, I mean, you have Muslims today who slander in the name of God. You have ISIS, right, who slander and who kill in the name of God. So I think it's more of a human nature. And human nature is as such that we are vulnerable. When Allah said, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ, Allah made human beings in a state of trepidation, where we're not stable until we become stable. And our stability is dependent on many factors. And if we hold on to the wrong factors, then we will never be stable. And the only way then for us to remain stable is to keep dunking people underwater and pushing people so that we can maintain our balance. And if we have stability with Allah, then we don't have to do any of the above. I think that's really the catch. When a human being holds on to the wrong structures for stability, then it leads to a constant instability, and that actually aggravates to even harsher behavior. So these are all indicative of the fact that a human being who stabilizes themselves, when Allah says, لِيَزْدَادُوا إِيمَانًا مَعْ إِيمَانِهِمْ, He increases their faith upon their faith. What does that mean? God is actually saying they have more stability, they have more security. Iman, the root word is amana, and amana means also security. Balad al-Amin, the Mecca is considered Balad al-Amin. It's known as this secure city, right? So when you have security, then you don't need to go and bully anybody else. But when you lack security, when you're very vulnerable, when you're in that state of very high vulnerability, then human beings tend to become very offensive. They tend to hurt others because they feel that's the only way for them to protect themselves.
It's interesting when we talk about protection. Let's go a level deeper here in terms of, from a psych point of view, people who themselves have been bullied are continuing that cycle potentially, right? They believe this is the only way to get respect or power or anybody to listen to them is by bullying and hurting other people or calling them names or speaking ill of other people. And it's fascinating to see that because they are trying to compensate, like you said, for their lack of self-esteem. They
exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of research shown, lots of data that when you witness violence, it's infectious.
Yes.
You think infection is only with a contagion, but actually visual infection, even auditory infection can cause a human being to behave in a peculiar way. So when we witness abuse upon ourselves or on others, then we're infected with that behavior, unfortunately. And there's a higher tendency for us to replay that. So they've done studies where children, when they do watch violent movies, suddenly they become violent in action. So it's something that's we need to pay a lot of attention to, so that when we are victims of that recycling behavior, those who are abused tend to become abusers. And sometimes when you talk to those abusers, to them, it's the norm. Abuse is norm. It's normal.
Yes.
And that's
and it's so sad to see that.
And it's the most dangerous thing. When something negative is your norm, it is so dangerous because you no longer have guilt.
Right. And no fear really in terms of the repercussions, or really care in terms of how this could impact somebody else.
Exactly.
And especially seeing it as a therapist, where I have lots of young people come in, and I'm working at a university environment. You see young people who are fresh in the first stages of their life of discovering themselves, what they believe in, their sense of self, who they are. And a lot of them, like you said, are stunted in that growth because of what they've experienced. So they come in and tell me things like, I was bullied in high school. I was made fun of. I was always ostracized, and people didn't include me. And they made fun of me because of the way I dressed or spoke or my interest. And so they become the losers, the loners, so to speak, unfortunately, with these titles. And you see that as these young people, bright, have so much potential with in growth and knowledge in what they're studying. But this aspect of them is limiting them from connecting with other people because they feel they're not worthy. And the bully has succeeded in this sense because they have made the victim feel unworthy of love, of being connected. And so again, this stunts the person's growth. And so people come in saying, I don't know how to make friends. I didn't have friends. I long for a relationship. I don't know how to talk to the opposite gender. I don't know how to do this or that. And then subhanAllah, again, when you come back and look what the root is, a lot of it is because, let's say, previous abuse at home from friends or family that have made this person feel unworthy. But then you see a history of it in terms of the bullying. And now we see it online, cyberbullying. And a lot of people use that to their advantage in the sense that they're hiding behind a keyboard and nobody can see them. Whereas bullying on the playground back in the day, we don't necessarily see as much of it now, except in schools, where people are pushing and shoving or making fun of and pointing fingers. But now it's behind the screen, the keyboard warriors or whatever you want to call them. And they do it safely behind that, the security of the keyboard. But that in itself, we've seen, has led young people to take their lives as well. What are your thoughts on that, Hajj?
Well, look, when Allah created the self, the human being, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا, by the self which He created and He perfected, right? فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, and He taught it wrong and right. And Allah on Judgment Day is going to hold that individual liable. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Nothing will help us on that day except hearts that are tranquil. When that heart is agitated and stabbed and it's bleeding and it's scarred, it's not easy for it to become stable. So it is when somebody hurts somebody's self-worthiness, you are hitting the nucleus of the human being. And I don't think there's anything worse that you and I can do than that. Because when you impede a child's growth due to our ignorance and arrogance, and that child ends up always having problems for the rest of their lives, this is sayyi'at jari, meaning that this is a sin that God will hold you liable for on Judgment Day for all the outcomes. Just like if we teach a child a good thing and we show them love and we take them to higher stages, that's, thawab jari. We take them to higher stages because of the good that we do. Social responsibility should not be taken lightly. It is the worst thing. I've seen people with tremendous potential. Like I deal with a youth who tells me, brother, I'm ugly, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I can't do this. I said, come, let me help you. So as I'm helping, he says, you see, I don't know anything. I said, why do you keep saying that?
Yeah.
Why do you keep saying I'm dumb, I don't know anything? What he's actually telling me is that so many people in his life have told him that, that he treats it as truth. So now he keeps doing that. Yeah. So what I keep doing is I keep breaking it. I said, no. Then as soon as he gives me the right answer, I look at him and says, there you go. You see, you're not dumb. You're not stupid. Oh yeah, you're right. So now you have to break this terrible, terrible damage that was done on this person, and you have to let them heal. And you have to give them the confidence back. And you sort of have to give them responsibility. And you have to say to them, here's the key. I trust you. They say, really, you trust me? I said, yeah, go ahead. And you know that even if they demolish that thing, whatever you gave them, or they don't do it properly, it doesn't matter. Because this is their way to get out of this shell that they were put into, that the shell of, claustrophobia, that is to tell them that, you're a nobody, mental claustrophobia, as I call it. No, you're going to grow. You're going to expand. Your potential awaits you that is so great that Allah says you are greater than the angels, meaning the angels will serve you. This is not something small. We should never look at human beings and say, you're dumb, you're ugly, you're stupid. Never, ever, ever. I have never said that to a kid. Any child I ever meet, I don't care, even if it's a child who's got trisomy 21, Down syndrome, I don't say that. I say, you're brilliant, you're beautiful. And they look at you, really? I said, yes, you're magnificent, come. And do what you can. And this amazing. I've seen children with Down syndrome build things, do things that even the average person can't do. So we should never say, and why do we do this? I believe we do this because it's the price we pay, not we pay, but it's the price we take to improve ourselves. So let me give you an analogy, simple analogy. Imagine you're at a certain level on the mountain, you're the bottom of the mountain, you're at the base of the mountain, and there's somebody above you. Let's say they are 50 feet above you. They've got a better view, right? They're more advanced, if you want to use that metaphor. You're down here, that person's up there. You're looking at them. You have two possibilities, okay, to meet this person. Either you bring them down or you climb up the mountain. Most people don't want to climb the mountain. The lazy ones don't want to climb the mountain. They want the easy way. Give me a pill, let me become a mu'min. Give me a pill, let me enter paradise. Give me something that I have no pain, no, nothing. Let me just be like a Muslim zombie, and on Judgment Day, I'll wake up and I'll go to paradise. Well, there's no such thing, right? And as a result, we find faults in people. And the minute, you ever notice, by the way, when you make a mistake, what is the first thing we do? We point at somebody. You did this. China is what? China brought the virus. Like we're angels. We Americans or the Canadian, we're angels, right? We have no diseases in America, by the way. Only China has a disease.
That's right.
And China, like our president is a master fault finder. Oh my God, don't look at him. You're ugly, you're bad, you're a little this, and you're some kind of a condescending name. Why? Because this guy is so vulnerable. He's on quicksand. He doesn't know how to stand straight. It's the only way he's got it is he's got to hold everybody and bury them.
Yeah, it's a pointing of the finger and making himself feel good, or anybody, the bully for that matter. The only way you feel good is by lowering somebody else. And this is a classic for narcissists that we find, the character of a narcissist, right?
Yeah. Right. And then that leads to bullying, because
Right.
now you can physically hurt somebody because you feel like I'm justified. You are a nobody. Slave owners used to think that dark-skinned people are really nobodies. They were so convinced, they couldn't fathom the idea that when the slaves were freed and they would get on the bus or on the train with them, they couldn't fathom somebody sitting next to them that was darker skinned. Can you imagine this demented state of mind that a human being can reach, that they can actually believe in this rubbish? Even in the Prophet's time, you know, when the messenger freed the slaves, he made Bilal Habashi the commander-in-chief of his army. And these slave owners in Mecca were stunned. They could not believe. These Arabs of the time thought that that's an African who cannot be a commander. He cannot lead me. Can you imagine how when Allah says, "Dhaluman insani dhaluman jahula," you know, ignorant and oppressive. You know, oppressive and ignorant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about us when we do this. What does that lead to? Then you take the whip out and you whip this poor slave, you tear their skin, thinking you haven't done anything wrong. Bullying becomes standard. So Allah on Judgment Day will punish these people severely. And Allah has used, he said, the Prophet has said, if you have one mustard seed size of arrogance in you, because arrogance leads to these behaviors, and ignorance, paradise is haram for you. You cannot enter paradise. That's how merciful Allah is. He will not allow it. And if you and I look down on somebody, I mean, I watched a video of somebody being bullied, you know, it made me cry. And then I remember a girl who was talking where she was taken to the bathroom, you know, they smashed her head on the toilet, and then they put her head in the toilet. And I'm thinking, like, what kind of, I always use this example, you're not human, you're a reptile. And then we might say, okay,
I have another name. I have another name, Hajj. I call them beetle dung. To put it nicely, beetle dung.
Yeah. So this is one expression that we have. And this expression that you and I are giving is our disgust and our frustration. But from a professional point of view, of course, we don't do that. From a professional point of view, we look at the bully and figure out how to fix them. So here's my policy. When I see a bully at our school, for example, I say to them, listen, I can come and bully you. Because people say, you know what, a bully should be bullied. This way they feel the taste of their own medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I say, but then in that case, we are telling the bully that the way to solve the problem was with violence. And I don't like that, because somehow that's not the solution. What you have to do is you have to start showing love to the bully.
Mm.
And you have to give the bully time. And you have to give the bully the realization. And you have to make them understand the pain of the pain that they caused on that person or the child that they bullied. Mm-hmm. I think that's very important. Once they feel that energy, the negative energy, it'll be so hard for them to commit the act. So it's like, look, the majority of the human race does not commit murder because it's an ugly act. It's so ugly, we know it. We don't like it. Alhamdulillah, we don't like it, so we don't kill each other so easily.
Alhamdulillah. You know, Hajj, as you were speaking about the bullying in the school, that's mostly where we hear about it. You reminded me of an incident that I experienced in high school, being a muhajjaba and sticking to right and wrong and that type of thing. And I remember these people in my science class, both guys and girls, used to gang up on me, make fun of me. And I remember it just got triggered, you could say, but I'm emotionally okay. But I remembered that memory, how they made me feel. And I remember at that point, the teachers got involved, the principal, but I kept being me. Now, years and years later, subhanAllah, the same person that was in that gang of bullies, the others, I didn't hear much from them, but I bumped into this one guy in a restaurant who turned out to be the manager of that restaurant years later. And I remember he came up to me and said, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? And all that. Alhamdulillah, I was able to finish my school, do my work, and do the type of work that I'm doing. And I kind of told him what I've been up to, and I have a child and this, and that. And he smiled, and then he said, you know, you've done well for yourself. And I could feel, not that there's anything wrong with managing a restaurant, but he didn't finish his school. He went down a wrong path. And then he came back and he, on his own, he said, because I didn't say, hey, you did this, you did that, in terms of kind of what you said, repeating the behavior somewhat. I was just being myself and talking to him, and he said, I owe you an apology. SubhanAllah, it just came out of nowhere. He said, I owe you an apology for how I was with you in high school. I got a free dinner and dessert that night, you know, but it was interesting to see how what came around years later. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, right? We don't have these cases where the bully becomes aware of their behavior. And sometimes, you know, I don't work with that population of students, let's say like you do, Hajj, in terms of how we can teach them love and compassion, show them the mistake. I work with the ones that are severely hurt and have been stunted in terms of developing themselves. And so we have to work and go back and rework that, talk about building self-esteem, giving them love in a different way, right? Building that sense of strength and belief in themselves that they are worthy human beings, despite what the bully said or did to them. It just saddens me so much, like what you described with that young woman who was pushed into the toilet and banged. And it begs the question, why does somebody do something like that? Are they born evil like that? And somebody has an interesting question, your comment here that I'd like to say, because mashallah, I can't keep up with all the comments that people are saying here, but this one on Facebook is saying, does one human have the ability to impact others' free will to the degree that they become beyond growth? Because this is just an idea that triggered their sense of justice. What do you think about that, Hajj?
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Just like the jinns can impact our free will and the choices we make, of course, we humans have a very powerful ability to affect each other to the point of suicide, where a person will commit suicide. I mean, what was that girl who was dating that boy and she kept telling you should kill yourself, you should kill yourself, you know, recently? And the boy went ahead and killed himself. You know, he jumped off a building and killed himself. That's the power of suggestion. And Allah says, min sharril waswasil khannas, alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas min al jinnati wan nas. Right? And waswas is what? These whisperings. So that's why when Allah says, ittaqillah, be God conscious, be aware, do not let these, suggestions get to you. The most vulnerable are children. Children are highly adaptive to suggestions. You know, I remember a father telling me something very interesting, just the power of suggestion. The father said, I was with my kids and I really wanted to go to Burger King. I didn't want to go to McDonald's. You know, this is a non-Muslim father, but it's very smart. And my kids wanted to go to McDonald's. So I just say to them, so I looked at my kids, I said, okay, so we can go to McDonald's or Burger King. And all the kids, okay, Burger King. Because whatever was the last one was highly suggestive. It was full of inflection. And the kids immediately got affected by it. Says, okay, Dad, you want to go to Burger King? Let's go to Burger King. Because of the way he presented it. The power of subtle suggestions, right? The movie industry is a master of suggestion. You know, it passes the images in different ways. You know, the whole industry of media is highly suggestive. In fact, people live fantasies. You know, why do people go and follow these actors and actresses, right? I mean, if you really look at it, they see them in the movies and they become real in the movies. Right. And then they follow them in real life, but they're actually seeing them through the fantasy. So that's how we can affect people. People worship, celebrities. They worship them. They have their pictures all over. They want to dress like them. They want to look like them. The power of suggestion, just in the way a film is made, my God, it can be so suggestive. But what I'm trying to say is, by the same token, that same suggestion should be used in the right direction. The power of suggestion of the Holy Prophet, which is real. The power of suggestion of Ahlul Bayt, which is real. The power of suggestion of how you and I can be successful in paradise is real. And those are progressive suggestions. But if we do not strengthen our understanding of the purpose of life, then these satanic elements that come and suggest to us, they will fill us with all these false ideas, which can lead us to commit heinous crimes, you know, because we've submitted to these silly suggestions.
And somebody's asking this question, how should we react to arrogant bullies? And some other people have been, while we were speaking earlier about how to show love and compassion, they're saying, well, we've tried this so many times. There's so much takabbur. They haven't they refuse to listen to the problem. So how should we then react to these bullies that just don't stop? Because again, we've seen the impact of it. You were talking about the girlfriend who kept telling her partner to go kill himself. There was a Syrian refugee here a few months back, 9 years old, a young hijabi girl who was told she was ugly, she was bullied at school, and they told her, go kill yourself. Now, this is almost an expression, a slang expression that people use, go kill yourself. But the arrogance of these bullies led this 9-year-old sweet angel to take her life. And it leads to another question that somebody asked here. So two-part, how do we react to these arrogant bullies? And second question that came here is, why don't kids tell their parents at school that they're being bullied?
Okay, the first one, it's the right of every human being. In the Quran also says eye for an eye, nose for a nose, tooth for a tooth. So somebody bullies you, defend yourself and give it back to them. You understand? If somebody consistently bullies you, stop it. So there are different ways to do that. Remember, the bully gets away with it because there's no resistance. Mm-hmm. They enjoy it. Okay, it's like a thief. If you ever ask a criminal, a would-be criminal, or a criminal who's, let's say, a pickpocket or a thief, they will find the most vulnerable people. Right. And those are the ones they will abuse. So a good example, they say when you go to Manhattan, for example, New York City, and you've got a camera hanging on your chest, right? And you keep looking up, at the skyscrapers. Okay, the mugger, the thug who's going to rob you now knows you're a foreigner, because if you act the way you're behaving, you are a tourist, you don't know the norms of the city, so they will take advantage of you. It's not only in New York City, it's everywhere in the world. You sort of have to act like you know. When you get into a taxi, for example, don't act like, I don't know where you're taking me. Act like you know. Have your GPS on and they say, hey, why'd you take that turn? Oh, yeah, you should take that turn. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. So this way, the taxi driver is not taking out for a spin, right? Because it's all how you behave. So if you get into a subway, you're getting on the bus, if you act tough, like as if you know your way, you'll find the would-be mugger or thug will sense that energy. Right. And they'll say, no, not this one. Or when they come by a house and they see a dog there, or they see an alarm sign, or they see something that looks like a camera, you'll find that they'll avoid that house. What was it? Well, it was a deterrent. Why was it a deterrent? Well, because I know that if I get involved with you, my life is going to get tougher. So a lot of times, kids who get bullied, unfortunately, send the message that, hey, I'm ready to get bullied. I hate to say that, and that is actually not true, but you get my point. I'm talking about
that it can happen.
In the mind of the bully, in the mind of the bully.
Right. So thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, because I could see people ready to jump on that. Yeah.
No. The child is not saying I'm ready. I'm just saying they're reading that. So what I do is with my daughter, I say, when somebody looks at you, this is the way you should. Somebody say, you're walking on the street, someone says, can I give you a ride? No. Make sure you know your phone numbers. Make sure you know your address. Make sure you never know. You have to give this child this ability to sort of immediately look at you and say, hey, I know what's going on. Or you run. Somebody's coming at you, run. Just take off. Just run. You'll find that person will get scared. It's one night.
Basic self-defense techniques that they teach also for women is the yelling and things like that. Yeah.
And be aware. One night, I'll give you an example. At 2:00 in the morning, I went to the supermarket, and I was in my teens. I was about 18, 19. I went to the supermarket. It was about 2 a.m. It's a 24-hour supermarket. I got in the car, and as I'm driving home, I see this car behind me, right? And as the car is following me, I made a turn. There are quite a few turns for me to reach my house, but I became suspicious. You see, under that condition, you're at 2:00 in the morning, somebody's following you. You're not sure if they're following you, or maybe it's just the car is going the same route as you are, right? Well, what happened is that this person, I made a turn, and the person's making the turn. I said, so I'm not going to go to my house now. I'm going to keep driving, and I'm going to make the wrong turns. Okay? So I'm just going to flip this, if you don't mind. I'm having a problem with my
Now we see you upside down, Hajj.
No, because my power is about to turn off.
Oh, okay.
So anyways, and I made that wrong turn, and the person followed, and I made another wrong turn. I said, okay, this is now getting
And they're creepy. Following you, right?
Yes, getting creepy. So, but what saved me was they wanted probably for me to go to my house, get off my driveway, and then maybe something would happen, right? So vigilance is highly prescribed in the Quran, not in a paranoid way, but vigilance. You're walking on the street, you see a group of people looking at you, figure out your energy level, ask Allah, read dua right away, seek Allah's help so that you don't become a victim due to, recklessness, right? Or not caring about your environment. And then as I kept driving, so I ended up on the main road, and then I saw a policeman standing on the side, and I stopped, and that person took off, right?
Yeah.
So luckily it was something that I picked up, and this person kept following me, and alhamdulillah, I figured out, okay, this person now is actually following me. It's not about crazy suspicions
or paranoia. Yeah, they're actually doing something.
Yeah.
And we see that a lot. We see that a lot, Hajj, online, I find, with just the people constantly harassing, calling people names. I've recently come across some people who've been bad-mouthing some of my friends and myself and saying some really horrible, disrespectful things, especially as we're women in the community, slandering us as females. So it's a form of almost verbal sexual harassment, and sending messages to groups of people in our circles, and respectable scholars and people like that. They've contacted us and said, it looks like you've got some fans out there who are saying some really nasty things about you guys. So it's really interesting hearing the stories. Like, it's not paranoia. There's actual people out there who are probably sick. They're psychopathic tendencies, narcissists, who feel some sort of power in trying to lower somebody by making fun of them, but more than just making fun of them, is actually trying to ruin their reputation. And we know this is a form to harm, because they are little themselves, or as we described earlier, beetle dung, these types of descriptions, that there's arrogance there, takabbur, there is low self-esteem, there's a form of rejection perhaps, and you see that type of behavior where they have to come back harder and trying to ruin what this person is in a form of making themselves feel better. So again, it's so interesting to see how people do that. And so how do we respond to that? Like you saying, we have to be assertive, we have to be strong, but at the same time, also, if you just allow me, we also have to ignore them, swat them like a fly on the wall. There has to be that sometimes as well, because you know what you're doing, you know what your intentions are, you know your skill set as well, in terms of, like we were talking about raising our daughters, teaching them assertiveness and knowing when to say no, knowing when to stop people as well. But also sometimes you just can't stop people. They just got to do what they want to do.
But if you say, for example, ignoring, if somebody's going to come in your face and is going to harm you, it's hard to ignore them. You
physically, yes. Yeah, so violence is different.
Yeah. So of course, if somebody makes a smirk or something, وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا, when an ignorant person, when you meet them, you say salam and just walk away, because you don't want to throw pebbles on mud, right? It's going to splatter. But the point is that sometimes it's unavoidable. So the way you do it, the way I've seen it work, is, it's unfortunate, but you show the other side that I can defend myself, and you're not going to get away with this, okay? And what you do is you find ways by which you counter it. So either you engage your parents into it, you engage the authorities into it, and you make an issue out of it. A lot of times kids don't do that because they're afraid of the consequence. It's like a molester, right? A molester says to a child, okay, if you're going to tell your parents, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to kill your parents, or I'm going to, some kind of a threat. And this person actually takes it as a true statement. And what it becomes is now they hold back, and then 30 years later, when they become older and stronger, then they bring it out in court, which unfortunately is a very painful experience, right?
Yes.
So what we need to do is also, when we know somebody is getting bullied, we need to jump in. I remember as a child, there was a boy who was bullied, and I mentioned that in my lectures, and when we were leaving the school, in Tanzania, and we were getting picked up to go home, there was a driver who would pick us up, and some of the boys were constant bullies. They loved fighting and beating, and they were highly pugnacious. Okay, to use the word pugnacious, they love to get into these brawls and fights. It's almost like that was their nature. They're like animals living in the zoo. Okay, and the only way I can let you know that I exist is if I punch you. So I'm watching this, and I watched this little kid. He was my age. We were same age. but he was a very docile child. He wasn't very confrontational or defensive. And they beat him. They were beating him up, and then he was bleeding a little bit. And I remember I was frozen. I didn't do anything.
So flight or flight, like you just froze there.
I was just frozen. I was frozen. I was probably 8 years old at that time. And I have never forgotten. That has been my energy in life. Where this child, after getting, and then we got on the truck and we all left. And, kids, okay, I beat him up. So what? It was friendly play. Yeah, he's bleeding. You tore his shirt. That evening, I went for prayers. In Dar es Salaam, we have the masjid there, and we all go for salah. So, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib. So we go for Maghrib Isha Salah as kids. We have our own place for prayers. And as I'm entering the masjid, on the side, there's a maghsal where they wash dead bodies. And the door was wide open, and there was a little body sitting on this maghsal. And it's just like Allah showed me, because I'm walking in, and I looked at this door open, and I saw a little body, and my curiosity piqued me and said, look, come and see something. So I immediately walked towards it, and I went right at the body, and subhanAllah, it was that boy.
La.
Okay, and what had happened was he had gone for a tonsil removal at the hospital that afternoon, and apparently it failed, and the boy died.
SubhanAllah. How did that affect you as a child?
He was 8 years old. So at that time, in the hospitals, they didn't have such good ways of, removing of tonsils, for example. So anyway, I cried. I was shaken. And the image of that boy has been ensconced in my head permanently. You can't get it out. And it has become my drive in life. But if I find anybody getting bullied, I become a lion. Okay, I vociferously challenge people, and I'm ready to put my life on the line. No more silence, I say to myself. I'll never be silent. I'm going to speak, even if I have to go to jail. If somebody's going to put a bullet between my eyes, do it, because I got no problem. I want to die with dignity, but I am not going to stand there watching a bully somebody. In our school at Wise, I have zero tolerance. All the kids know. If I get to know even subtle bullying, even subtle, a smirk, okay, I go after them. And they're so scared in the school. The bully is so scared that I have zero tolerance. And they come up with new ways to bully. But I told them, I said, if I come to find out, I'm going to straighten you out, because I have zero tolerance for it, period. Okay, and it has affected me so much that until today, okay, I remember one time, one of my friends in school, did something, and the teacher asked me, and I replied, yes, he did this. And this poor boy was whipped, Now, of course, that was something that the teacher asked me to speak the truth. I did. But I felt so bad after this boy was whipped that I hugged him. I bought gifts for him. I kept making friends with him. I just kept on maintaining relationships, because I couldn't get over the fact that maybe by what I said, he got harmed a little bit. And I can't allow that. And my modus operandi in life now is forget about being defensive. Let's go out there and build structures so that we grow and we don't have to put Band-Aids on people. Let's go teach them how to lift weights and be strong and tough so that they can dictate their own future. I don't need to go and take them to the hospital because I love them. No. How about I take them and strengthen them with myself so that nobody ever harms them?
And that's teaching them basic self-defense. And there are, mashallah, lots of courses that both men and women can take, in children as well. And somebody is asking here, well, what if it's not kids? Because most of the stories we've heard so far is about kids. And then they're saying most of the time, these people slandering are grown adults. How do we deal with that?
So if they're parents, for example, you need to talk to them. Sometimes you can't. You say to your parent, listen, you're ugly. I mean, I've had girls come and cry, literally bawling, that my dad calls me ugly. And I do believe I'm ugly because my dad says that. And I said, no, your dad is wrong. 1000% your dad is wrong. You are not ugly. And I don't understand why. And then they asked me, then why is my dad saying that? I said, look, your dad probably has frustrations at work. He's probably got financial problems. Maybe he's got a love problem, maybe something. You've got to help him. And he's figured out the easiest way to take out his tension, and know who better than your kids. That doesn't mean what he's saying is right. What you need to do is you need to work with your dad and help your dad get out of this problem. If your dad is resistant on that, then bring your mom into the equation, bring an outsider, bring your uncle into it, bring somebody that your dad respects. I've had parents, for example, I've had kids come to me and I've seen it. And I asked the parent, I said, do you hit your child? And they respect me. Hajj, you know, Hajj, mashallah, I respect you a lot. I asked them bluntly, I said, do you hit your child? And the parent says, well, sometimes I do smack them, yes. I said, if you take my advice as an older brother, then stop doing that. And the parent says, but what's wrong with that? I said, what's wrong with it? I said, how about if somebody smacks you? Do you like that? I said, where do you smack them? On the face? You know, it's haram to smack a person on the face. The Holy Prophet said it's haram to strike this sacred face, this wajhillah. You know, when Allah says, Allah uses the word wajhillah, the face of Allah, the word wajh is used for what reason? It's very sacred.
Right.
You know? كل من عليها فان ويبقى ربك ذي الجلال. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who is eternal, right? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word wajh as an expression because the Prophet has said the face is a very sacred part of the human body. Right? Don't strike that. Now, parents says, well, I need to smack my child. I said, the reason you need to smack is because you're not communicating properly. And the problem is not with the child. The problem is the way you're sending the messages. You know, many times in school when a teacher says, this child I can't deal with, I said, you know, maybe it's because of the way you're dealing with the child. You know, maybe the problem is the way we're teaching. Maybe the problem is the way we're approaching. Sure, there are some kids who are very difficult, very hard to manage, and there's a way we can solve their problems, but there's always a solution for every problem. But I just want to make a quick point here. Self-defense is an essential necessity. You know, when the people used to throw rocks at the Holy Prophet in Mecca, you know, Imam Ali alayhi salam used to take the seeds of the dates and he used to shoot it back at them, just to deter them. That, hey, don't come and hit my prophet, right? Is that violence? No. Quran says, aim back, let them get a little taste of it, because that. But in bullying, in countering bullying, there are many other ways to do it. Now, one question is, why do children not mention that? As we mentioned, they're afraid. They're also afraid of consequences. But here's another reason. Children don't want to be seen as weak. So if I come and say to someone, by the way, that guy is bullying me. Oh, so you're weak. And people don't like to expose that. They don't like to say, so they will bury it so that people don't think that they're really weak, and hence they don't tell. So we have to be very cognizant that they don't, it's like a poor person who's full of honor doesn't come and tell you I'm poor. So they appear like they're needless. Quran even mentions, you will see them appear in Surah Al-Furqan. Allah says you will see that they appear to be needless, but actually they're very needy, but they carry themselves with dignity. But it's a painful dignity, you know? It's a painful kind where they have this debt that they have to pay, but they don't appear like they're beggars. Same with these people who hide. So what we need to do is we need to be vigilant and aware. I remember in the university, my friends were so close to me. They were from the Middle East, from Saudi and from Kuwait and so on. We were so close that we resonated. And we had a habit of calling each other, Assalamu alaikum, how are you? But we were feeling each other's energies. And one time I remember my father sent me the tuition to pay, and the tuition, you know, it was a check and it hadn't arrived in the mail. And the deadline was that afternoon, that if I didn't pay, all my classes would be dropped. So my friend calls me up, a really pious Muslim, a Muslim who's very connected with Allah. He calls me, he says, brother, how are you? I said, alhamdulillah, I'm fine. Everything okay? Yes, alhamdulillah. He says, no, something's not right. I said, what do you mean something's not right? See, that's awareness, right? Meaning that innamal mu'minuna ikhwa. Why is Allah using ikhwa here? It's very deep. It's like your pulse is my pulse. You're resonating. We as a community should feel that way. You know, in school, when I see kids walking around, I watch their faces and they know that I'm reading them. And then if I see some behavior, I go and sit with them and talk to them. They're not going to tell me, but I'm going to get it out of them, because if I don't do that, because that child is like my own self.
Right.
So this friend of mine says, you look worried. I said, no, I'm fine. He said, no, you look worried. Something's wrong. I said, brother, there's nothing wrong. He said, no, I'm not hanging up until you tell me what the problem is.
Right.
So I'll tell you what the problem is. I haven't received this check. My dad sent it. And if I don't get the check today and pay this, my tuition, then I'm going to miss one semester of classes. He said, where are you right now? I'm coming. He came. and he gave me the same amount check. He said, here's the check.
MashaAllah.
He said, deposit this, pay your tuition. Tomorrow when the check comes, you pay me back. You know, that behavior has affected me so much that I can't stop. When I see somebody in trouble, I have to also reciprocate. For that brother taught me what is good, and I can never pay him back, for he originated that good. That's the kind of behavior we should. And by the way, if we do this for ourselves and each other, you know, the bully will have a harder time, because now they will see that you have a circle of protectors.
Exactly. So Hajj, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure it's empowered a lot of people to hear personal stories, not just definitions that we brought up, but to hear that we've also experienced this, and anybody really can experience it. We've spoken at it child to child. We've spoken adult to child. Really important now, let's discuss adults to adults. So I have a question here. How about bullying in the community? How do you deal with those challenges, being bullied as an adult by adults, sadly, and having to navigate through life? How do you handle that? Because unfortunately, that is the reality that we have, that adults are also bullying others through harassment as well as through slander that we've seen. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, threats like that, because now we call it threats, right? When adults are threatening each other, you know, I'll threaten you with a lawsuit, I'll threaten you with some kind of damage on your body or in your property, you know,
or your reputation with lies.
Exactly. And that's haram. Quran says, "La talmizu anfusakum wa la tanabazu bil alqab, bi'sa al-ismu al-fusuq ba'da al-iman." Right? Allah says, do not find faults in each other. Don't give each other bad names. La yaskhar qawmun min qawmin asa yakunu khayran minhum. Let not a group of believers, laugh at another group. So even laughing, Quran forbids it, right? Wala nisa'um min nisa'in asa yakunna khayran minhunna. Let the women not laugh at another group of women, perchance they're better than the other. So Quran has laid a very strong foundation in Surah Al-Hujurat, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is haram. You cannot do this, right?
Now, we know it's haram, but people still engage in it. So how do we deal with that too? And Hajj, just a heads up, Instagram's going to go off in less than 2 minutes. So we'll answer this question and then we'll go back in, inshallah. But we're still going on the other two. Yeah.
Right. So look, when somebody considers something haram, look, you have a tyrant who thinks that killing is a good thing. Quran says, let the good people rise and stop it. I mean, what else are you going to do? Right. Imam Ali alayhi salam used to go to people's houses when people used to abuse, and he would tell them, stop abusing. And the person says, no. Imam would put his hand on the sword. He said, excuse me, what did you just say? And he said, yes, I won't do this anymore. Imam says, enough. I'll give you an example. One time, a man in the bazaar, when Imam alayhi salam was the Khalifa of the time, he slapped a person in public, okay, in the bazaar. Imam Ali alayhi salam was called as the Hakim Shari and said, look, you're the Khalifa of the time. How do you solve this problem? Imam looks at the person who was slapped and said to him, it is better for you to forgive him, right? But you can slap him back. So the man says, okay, then I forgive him. Then Imam turns around and slaps the man who slapped.
Okay.
So people were stunned. Like, why did the Imam slap this person when the man has already forgiven the man? Imam says that was a personal issue. But since this man slapped him in public, he poisoned the public mind. And therefore, I, the Hakim, is going to teach him a lesson. And I'm going to slap him so that you don't get away with this again. So notice the response is give it back by its definition. So if somebody's threatening you, say to them, okay, no problem. Come on. You know, I will defend myself. Defense is a natural right of the human being. So if people are doing this, don't be coy and be afraid and hide. Oh, my reputation is going to get spoiled. Don't be afraid. Seek Allah's help and defend yourself. And you will be amazed to see how cowardly the actual bully is. By the way, bullies are the biggest cowards on earth. People who hurt others are the biggest coward. Ibn Ziyad was a bully. He was a coward.
All right, we're going to sign back in. Keep the discussion going. That's people are asking really good questions. All right, so I'm back in Instagram.
Oh, you're back in Instagram?
If you just want to go in, Hajj, so I'll invite you back in right away.
Oh, really? Okay. And
I've never heard the story of the Imam before of doing that.
Yeah. Are we live? Am I live or?
Are you in, Hajj?
I don't know.
We got this, Hajj. We can do it. I just need to see your name on there. Do you remember how to do it?
It says you're now live, but am I live on my own? I probably am live.
Did you go live on your own page, Hajj?
Are you sure you want to end your live video? Live video ended.
Yeah, you want to get out because you started your own live. That's okay. We're experimenting today to figure out how to use the live. So now you know next time you can go live from there.
I don't want to go live.
Okay, so just end that and then join the live from the Insta Ahl al-Bayt.
How come you're not, you don't show up on that? All right, so live. All right.
From the Insta Ahl al-Bayt.
I see you live, okay.
You're in. Okay, let me see your name. There we are. I see you.
I'm sending you a request.
Yes, got it. Your name. There we are. Our friends on Insta Ahl al-Bayt are quite entertained. There we go. There we go. All right, Hajj, you want to continue with the story that you were talking about?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that Ibn Ziyad was a coward. Is if you study the behaviors of people who bully, they do this because they're cowards. They don't know how to progress in life.
Right.
They don't know what progress is. They only know progress through hurting others and harming others. So as a result of that, you find that that's why they do what they do. So when you know that a bully is a coward, all it takes is you've just got to figure out where their weak spot is, and then you go after them.
What's interesting is that a lot of these bullies here in our own communities have the face of piety, of religion, of good people doing good and helping others, yet underneath, and I've seen this and I've heard stories, and people come and talk to me about the issues they've experienced, where they say, people are not going to believe me because this person puts themselves out there as looking as this pious, caring, religious person, yet underneath, they are doing this type of bullying and hurting other people. It's such a hypocrisy, nifaq, really, like hypocrisy going on. What do you think of that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you should be surprised if they don't do that. You think about it, right? If you're going to be a bank thief, you've got to do the planning. You've got to look like a regular customer,
right?
And then after you've robbed, you've got to wear civilian clothes, and so it's all part of the package deal. Of course, they're going to come to the mosque and appear pious. It's part of the game. When Iblis says, فَبِعِزَّتِكَ لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ, I'm going to beguile them. How do you beguile if you don't pretend? So hypocrisy is part of the camouflage. That's the fabric by which they live by. So it's a classic behavior. Yes.
And they align themselves also with the right names, the right people. And so you see this character create a persona of such divinity in the community. Meanwhile, they're rotten underneath that black heart because of the evil diseases of envy, takabbur, riya, subhanallah. And yet people, they still project that. And of course, what they do, and the incidences that I'm seeing and hearing from people, is that they go and attack other people and try to bring down their reputation by, again, still showing all the good things that they're doing by helping other people and creating that. So it's scary to see that within our own communities, you have people that show that piety, yet underneath, this is what their true face is. And so when you see that, they become threatened. They become afraid. And to answer the sister here in line with that, how do you deal with that? You said to stand up for yourself and say, bring it. God's got my back. He ain't got your back. You're the hypocrite here, right? But how do you truly deal with that when it really comes face to face with that? God will expose them.
Okay, that's an excellent question. But here's how it works, okay? Allah says in the Quran, Ya Yahya, khudil kitaba biquwwa. Okay, Yahya bin Zakaria was under pressure, And Allah says, take the law and move. When you and I, bow to Allah and we seek His help, and Allah says, in yansurukum Allah fala ghaliba lakum. When God helps you, nobody can defeat you, right? You are taking refuge. You're reading Ayatul Kursi. You're reading 4 quls. You're leaving your house with tawakkal Allah wa kafa billahi wakila. You think the bully doesn't see that? But if we don't do that, if we don't strengthen our iman towards Allah and understand where Allah stands in my protection, then of course the bully is going to keep having a ball with us.
The energy you were talking about earlier.
Yes, let's strengthen ourselves. We don't have to go and counter this guy. Strengthen yourself, defend yourself, have faith in Allah, walk in front of people and have no fear. You know, Imam Ali alayhi salam was a very pleasant person, but on a battlefield, he would send you straight to hell, to use the metaphor, right? Why? Unafraid. He wasn't a giant. He wasn't a big person. He was a medium height person, but agile, but had incredible confidence in himself. So if you and I want to succeed and minimize the bullying, let's strengthen ourselves. Let's seek Allah's help. I always tell the kids, when you leave your house, read the 4 quls. The Prophet said, if you read Surah Al-Ikhlas 7 times, Qul Huwallahu Ahad 7 times, you will come back the same way you left. People say, really, brother? I said, look, you've got to believe me. You know, when we purchased the camp, I was living there alone, you know, working on the camp. It was pitch dark. There was no light. I'm talking about 100-acre property, right? You're walking through the woods. I would read Ayat al-Kursi and walk. You know, there's all these ideas, an animal will jump out. Somebody, you know, something spooky. I don't care. Of course, I'm not putting myself in harm's way because I had to walk in that direction. But I said, oh, Allah, I have your tawakkul and you will protect me. And I was cool as a cucumber walking to the end of the property and coming back. I said, my Lord is my protector. And Imam Ali alayhi salam teaches us, when somebody said to him, I'm going to kill you, he said, my death is my protector. If it's time for me to leave, I will leave. I'm not afraid. You know the coward on the other side, how much they read that energy? Like, wow, you know something. Oh my God, I'm scared of you because I think you'll outdo me. So let's carry that, number one, and understand that when we are vigilant in our ways and unafraid, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will strengthen us against these evil forces. Okay, and we've got to take dua. You know, I remember one time I was quite vocal about something and somebody threatened my life. You know, somebody said, okay, your life is on the line. You know, you're now, you know, watch out. I said, no problem. Because actually I was defending somebody. So now I was threatened because I said, okay, no problem. I told you, from the time when I was that 8-year-old, I'm never going to let this happen. Right. So I went home and I was very disturbed, very perturbed. I didn't know what to do. I was sitting, standing, I didn't know what to do. So my mother said to me, read the Sahifa, it'll give you calmness. So I go to Sahifa Sajjadiyya and there's one for removal of worries. It's a dua Imam Zain al-Abidin has taught us, removal of worries. And I remember, and I'm speaking from the heart, I sat on the couch. I was so agitated. My heart was pumping. You know, it's the most uncomfortable feeling. You can't lie down. You can't stand up. You can't walk. The
anxiety,
It's the anxiety level is just intense. So
you had to ground yourself. You had to ground yourself.
Yes. So all I did was I opened up the dua and I started reading. And all I can tell you is when I finished the dua, I became very sleepy.
Subhanallah.
I became so sleepy. The book of dua, Sahifa Sajjadiyya, was on my chest and I fell asleep for 8 hours.
Subhanallah.
Okay, and when I woke up, I had no idea. I was like, and from that day onwards, subhanallah, I never felt agitated again in my life until today. Just that one dua. It's incredible. Ya man ismuhu dawa wa dhikruhu shifa. People are asking, how, brother, how? I said, my God, hold on. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. You know, Allah says, فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا. When you hold on to Allah, your rope becomes strong. I go and speak in universities. I go and sometimes speak in public in front of very hostile groups. I remember when the war in Iran and Iraq was taking place and the Ba'ath were out there, you know, promoting Saddam. And I was standing up in the university condemning Saddam, you know. And they said, we will kill you. I said, come on, I'm not afraid of you. How did I get that strength? I was thinking of Imam Ali alayhi salam. I'm thinking of Imam Hussein in Karbala. I said, these are my leaders. I'm thinking of the Prophet. Oh my God. In Mecca, they're throwing stones at him and he's standing there. He's not afraid. Why did God give me these prophets? Why did he give me these imams? Allah says, hold on to them. You know, when Allah says, Fattabi'uni, what is God saying? He says, these are not words, these are real. And then the enemy is scared. They look at you, oh, I'm sorry. I would go and I just read a Quran in public and people say, what are you reading? But they told me, they said, whatever you read calmed us. And it made us very, I go into a meeting sometimes and I would read an ayah in public, and by the time I'm done, these people are hugging me.
That's beautiful.
The same people who say that that's a Muslim, that's a Shia, I hate him. And next thing they're hugging you. How come they're hugging you? Because you took Allah's hand. You said, oh Allah, protect me. So the best answer I can give you is protect yourself with holding on to the rope of Allah with dua, and be not afraid, and defend yourself where needed, and use the people who have clout and power and say, hey, I'm having this problem. What do you suggest? All it takes is one look, and the other person says, okay, I'm sorry. I'll give you an example. When we were doing the camp, when we bought the camp, by the way, they didn't know we're Muslims. We bought it very quickly. They had no idea we're Muslims. If we told them we're Muslims, we would have never owned the camp.
More headaches. Yeah.
So we outsmarted them, right? So we bought it, and then suddenly they found out we're Muslims. So now they started attacking us on different ways, right. Legal attacks. Even the police was coming in. We're getting all kinds of threats from, right? So I looked at the chief guy from the DEQ. He comes and says, you guys are going to go to jail. I said, no problem. I'll see you in the Supreme Court. I said, I'm going to spend millions of dollars, and I'm going to fight you tooth and nail, and I'm going to fight for my right, because as an American citizen, freedom of religion is here to stay, and I'm going to fight for my right. And if you think otherwise, we'll meet in the courthouse. So they started, I said, I made a niyyah. I said, Ya Allah, this is your project. This is not mine. I don't inherit a penny of this. I'll be gone. Others will be running this, but this is your project. Why? We need to have kids come in here. They build self-confidence. They avoid bullying. They learn how not to. They learn. And you are going to create this environment where kids are going to go home and their suicides are going to go out the window, and they're going to become leaders in the community. And it's exactly what happened, by the way, in Canada. There was a girl who was suicidal in Toronto who was on the verge of killing herself. And then the community put the money together and sent her to our camp. She went back and she became the youth leader. In the Afghan community. She became a youth. I got an email that said, this is the change that the camp has done. This girl was going to do this. This is what happened. She's now, forget about suicide. She's now become a youth leader. MashaAllah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It's amazing. SubhanAllah, right? So I'm looking at this head guy. He said, we're going to stop you. I said, we'll see you in court. Right? And you're talking about very high-powered people. What did we do? I looked at ways. I said, how can I defend myself? This is getting worse. We're getting threatening letters from the police department, et cetera, et cetera. I said, hold on. We went all the way to the governor's office, and we found the deputy, and we found the deputy chief of, the deputy of staff in Wayne County, which is the largest county in Michigan. And we went and we said to them, and these are our friends, by the way, these are people who believe in our mission. Right. Even, by the way, a newspaper in Lapeer said, hey, if these people harass you, we will put an article in the newspaper. I said, I'm ready. But we hired the most high-powered legal company, local here, right, Miller Canfield, and we went for the jugular. And when they saw this, and when I went to the governor's office, and we laid this foundation, they got phone calls, back off. You guys are unfair, back off, right? And subhanAllah, after having spent almost $150,000 in legal fees, we won the battle. We won the ad valorem, because they wanted to charge us taxes on the property. I said, I'm not going to, this is bullying. This is actual bullying. Absolutely. Systematic, we don't want systemic bullying. And by the way, who are our biggest proponents, the ones who supported us? The local people. The local people said, we love these Muslims. We hired them to work at the camp. We would send gifts on Christmas to all our neighbors. We were the biggest spenders in town in the summertime. Every shop in town loved us, right? They still love us. So the point is, we've got to win their heart. And the way you do it with a bully is, is there a way I can win your heart? There was a man who was bullying our imam. Imam goes to his property, and imam says, how much do you want for your property? The man gives a price, imam doubles it. And when the man gets the money, he looks up, he says, God knows where to put his agent. And he started to love the imam, right? These kinds of stories, Imam Hassanain Rajabali, there was a man who was told by the Syrians that the Ahlul Bayt are the worst people, the worst people, the worst people. Right? He meets Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and he's cursing him. Imam says, you are a foreigner. You don't live in this town. He says, I don't. He said, come home, rest, have some lunch with me, relax, and then we'll continue to talk. And the man was so stunned by this behavior. He said, never have I loved somebody more in my life than this man. So you got a bully who's got something, who's got an edge, who's got an axe to grind. Maybe there's a way you can change it. Maybe by giving them kind words. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam says, punish the person who is harsh to you by being kind to them. But if that doesn't stop and they keep on insisting, then strengthen yourself and put your foot down and say, enough is enough. I'm not going to allow this. And watch, even the biggest organization like DQ, when DQ came to our facility, they said, you know, we are more powerful than the FBI. Yeah, I said, I don't care if you are Congress, if you're the president of the United States, I don't care. This is a private property and I have my rights. And if you want to take it legally. Right. And I will fight you tooth and nail, because on Judgment Day, I want to tell my Lord, I fought. And the man looked at me and says, you are that defiant? I said, you've got it. That's right. You have no idea the line you're looking at, because I'll fight you tooth and nail. Don't you dare come in my way in this project. Today, they're so nice to us. The township is nice to us. The city is nice to us. They leave us alone. Nobody messes with us. Why? Because
you set the precedents, you set the boundaries, and that's the thing what we have to do. Between your words, that's such an inspiring story. I could hear all the comments and the likes on this, because I feel the energy of people just as I am right now, feeling so inspired by that energy. And so from a mental health perspective, we look at setting boundaries with the bully, because as soon as they sense the vulnerability or in their perspective weakness, then they're going to try and push those boundaries. So it's really important, like what the Hajj was telling us, is to learn how to set boundaries. Sometimes we can be inspired through the du'as, through the stories of the Ahl al-Bayt. Sometimes people are not familiar with these stories, right? Or don't know where to access this. So you've heard it here, and we're also encouraging you to read more to get that inspiration. And I will also add, as a therapist, going through the therapeutic process to learn about yourself and experiencing the trauma that you did before, working through it, you can learn how to set those boundaries. You can work through the pain, right? And you can work on strengthening yourself as well. So absolutely, through mentors, people in our communities, like the Hajj, looking up to him and the stories that he's telling us, but also talking to a therapist, especially when you are feeling suicidal. If you can't go to a camp, because right now we're in the middle of a pandemic and you can't go to the camps, Camp Taha and other camps that are local, please do talk to somebody that can help you work through this. There's the Nasiha hotline here in North America that you can use for free for Muslims as well as people of different backgrounds. In the UK, there is the Muslim Youth Helpline. So we have these supports in place for you to talk to a trained therapist and a counselor to talk about these issues amongst other mental health issues as well, especially the ones that are preventing you from living a serene, stable life. Because we want you to reach your full potential. To be able to do that, we have to work through these things and accessing the supports that we have in our communities, whether it's our speakers or professionals, and using that. Because like we were saying earlier, kids are afraid to go talk to their parents, let's say, because they're afraid of what's going to happen. They're going to be in trouble, or it was their fault. Right? So it's really challenging, and it's a fine line. Or let's say the adults in the community are afraid of saying anything because they feel that they could be causing fitna, when in fact the fitna is on the person, the hypocrite that we already described, right? And let's say outside of our community, like the Hajj described, really important to learn how to set our boundaries, know what your rights are, and to build that confidence. And when you show that out there, we're not talking arrogance, no, but confidence, assertiveness, because there is being submissive, there is being arrogant and aggressive, and then there's being assertive in the middle. And these are the skill sets that we are trying to teach people, whether it's in therapy, whether it's in school or in the academy, and through the lectures that we're giving. So thank you so much, Hajj. I'm just feeling the energy right now. So please go ahead.
Yeah, there's a question. I got bullied since I was young for not knowing how to read or write because I'm dyslexic. Any advice? Well, look, any kind of, what we call difficulties that we may encounter is no reason for somebody to bully us. First of all, every one of us has limitations, right? Some of us are more athletic than others. Some of us are more agile than others. Some of us are more, strong than others. So this idea that, oh, you can't do this. This is, once again, a bully will always find your weak spot. Right. Whatever, like that, your hijab, Sister Barak, was to them your weakness. Or what's that towel on your head? What's that cloth on your head?
Oh, I actually got called Towel Head. That was the name, Towel Head. They actually called me towelhead, raghead.
And where did that come from? It came from some arrogant bigot who doesn't even know how, to walk straight, right? And they make these silly comments, and they're so ignorant that they would see a Sikh thinking it's a Muslim. The poor Sikh is wearing
a turban head.
They're so ignorant. They don't even know the difference between these two groups of religion, right? So when somebody finds your weakness, okay, and as I say, it's all about strengthening the self. Look, my suggestion to all of us is the greatest solution to our problems first is internal, while you do external. But if I gave you priority, it's internal first. Alaykum anfusakum, Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu alaykum anfusakum. Or you who believe, take care of yourselves first. So look inside yourself and say, somebody said I'm dyslexic, okay, so I get bullied. No problem. I am okay with it.
Acceptance.
So let them say what they say. Yeah, but you know what? I've got so many graces of God that I can't even, I can't exhaust it. So so what? And I'm glad I have some weakness. Sometimes when I do something, people said, can you do this? I said, no. Oh, Hajj, you can't do that. I said, Alhamdulillah, I can't do that. They said, why? I said, Alhamdulillah, can you imagine if I could do everything? You know how arrogant I'd be? Alhamdulillah, I can't do it. That maybe somebody else can do it now. And Alhamdulillah, that person now will be in the limelight. Maybe I can do something better than that person, and I'm on this limelight, and this person on that. Alhamdulillah, imagine if I was in the limelight for everything. How ridiculous is that? So this idea
of have our skills and talents.
Yeah, not being able to do something is not a weakness. It's a strength, because it's a means that balances you. You remember?
Or working on it to get better.
Yeah, you have to be an expert on how not to do something if you want to be an expert in something.
Expert on say that again? To do something.
You have to be an expert on how not to do something in order for you to do something. You see, basketball players.
I gotta write this.
Yeah, if you look at soccer players, they're experts on how not to do something. Right? They're experts on how not to kick the ball the wrong way. They're experts how not to get the ball outside the boundaries. They're experts not how to not get fouled. So when you're an expert in how not to, you become an expert on something. Thomas Edison, when he discovered the light bulb in New York City, he was told, Mr. Edison, wouldn't it have been great after all those thousands of light bulbs that didn't work, that had you made this light bulb the first time? He said, no, I'm the world's best expert on how not to make a light bulb.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. That's so empowering.
To us, failure is a negative. No, failure is a positive. You should actually, even the CEO of Google, what's his name, Pichai, whatever, the Indian guy from, he says you should savor yourself in the mistakes you've made, because those are your trophies. That's how you get grounded. This is how you reach that level of control. So when someone says to you that, okay, you're this and therefore you get bullied, the minute you accept it, the bully says, aha, you see, this person is accepting it. Good. So I'm now going to keep rubbing that mark. You see, and I'm going to keep hurting. So my advice, don't let any negative get to you. When someone says to me, for example, Hajj Hassanain, you're this, they say something negative. I look at them now and I said, you're right, I am. Oh, you accept that? I said, absolutely. And thank you for exposing it again. And you know what? I need to work on that. And you're right, I do have that. Oh, you're willing to agree with that? I said, of course. Alhamdulillah, I'm weak. Alhamdulillah, I have this deficiency. Thank God. So this way, when I go into sujood and I say, ظَلَمْتُ نَفْسِي وَتَجَرَّأْتُ بِجَهْلِي, I know that for a fact. I do know. There was a time when somebody corrected me, I used to get very annoyed. They're jealous. They just don't like me. They're just jealous.
You can't please everyone. Yeah.
No. It's my vulnerability. It's not about pleasing.
Right.
I am weak. Why should I feel angry when somebody corrects me? Maybe they're correcting me for a good reason. Even if it's for a bad reason. Hey, own it. So there was a time I used to get very annoyed. Somebody came and corrected my Arabic. How dare? Who do you think that? Blah, 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 blah. And I think, okay, you know what? You're the Arabic expert. You don't even know how to speak Arabic. Yeah. Okay. My mother would say to me, good, somebody corrected you. That's excellent. Now own it. So I said, really? They're not jealous? She said, of course not. Even if they are, so what? Take it in a positive way. It's good for you. So now when someone comes and says something negative to me, I look at it and say, you know what, you're right. I didn't think about that. Somebody came to me the other day and says, Hajj, I want to ask for your forgiveness. I said, for what? He said, well, I've been backbiting you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay. And I'm really sorry. I said, well, it's not good to backbite. You shouldn't do that. If you want, just front bite me. Come in front of me and say it. I've got
Front
no
bite
problem.
me. Front bite
But
me. That's a good one too. I like that.
I said to the brother, I said, you know, but maybe what you said is not wrong. You did backbite me, but maybe what you said is not wrong. So it's okay. And maybe what you said, I do need to correct myself on that. Maybe I do have that weakness. So it's okay, but don't backbite.
So I've got something a little personal to ask you, Hajj. Sorry, between your words, you got me thinking here. So you have developed this wisdom with experience. When you were younger, back in the younger days when you were just doing this and people came to you with critical feedback or criticism, how did you deal with it then compared to now? Because obviously with experience, we've toughened up our skin and we've learned how to reframe it in a way where we can take it in as a positive like you've been doing. But how did you deal with it? Because there's a lot of young people out there who know it's all, right? And cannot handle feedback or critical feedback. So how did you deal with it in your younger days compared to now? Because I see the energy of wisdom, and I also see the energy of you of, I don't care, you know, but in a good, I don't care way, you know, like I'm not going to let your words hurt me. So how did you deal with it when you were younger? And what's your advice to younger people?
It goes both ways. It goes both ways. I have to admit that when I was younger, if somebody criticized me, it was very painful. It was like somebody took a bat and hit me on the head. And I was like dizzy, like, oh my God, what did they? And I can't get it off my head. Like, how dare they? At first, it's incredible anger. Then there's this processing. Then it's like Kubler-Ross's idea of how death and dying, when the doctor told you you're going to die. At first you're angry, eventually you embrace it, So I went through that. The blessing of Allah was that in all my life, the majority of comments I got by Allah's grace were positive.
Alhamdulillah.
Every once in a while, I'd get a little negative and it hurt. Right. But there was an overwhelming positivity that sort of kept me going. And I would think sometimes, what if majority was negative? Who knows? Maybe I would have just buried myself, who knows? But Allah is merciful, thank God. And I have parents who are very supportive, of what I do. And even when people would say things, I never cared because my parents were there to protect me. So that was a blessing. But as I grew older, I realized that criticism is actually very healthy because it's the only way for me to improve. So it was tough at first. And the way I would counter is I would look at the problem that the person exposed and I would make sure I never make the mistake again. Which actually was very positive. I give you an example, okay? I had memorized Dua Kumail. When I was a teenager, I memorized the whole Dua Kumail. I was able to recite Dua Kumail. So I felt very proud, like, oh my God, I can read Dua Kumail so well, mashallah. So I went to the university. And I was in the university, so subhanAllah, I was very depressed. I was very sad because there was no community for me. Everybody's drinking alcohol, dating, doing all kinds of crazy things. And I felt like, oh my God, I'm totally out of place. And if I don't get help from God, I'm going to join these people because there's no other way. I'm too distant away from home. And subhanAllah, one Thursday, I was very sad. I went to the student lounge and I saw this brother selling electronics. I talked to him and he was a Iranian brother. And the minute he spoke, I realized he's Iranian. So I said, oh, you're Iranian? He said, yeah. I said, oh, you're Muslim? He said, yeah, I'm Shia, I'm Ahlul Bayt follower. I said, oh, subhanAllah, wow. This was like an amazing discovery, right? So it was Thursday night. He said, what are you doing tonight? I said, nothing. He said, come with me. There's this place we all gather for Dua Kumail. I said, there's Dua Kumail here? He says, yeah, in Denver. I said, okay. Yeah. So he took me in the car and we went down to Denver and this was fantastic. I met all these brothers. The brother who gave me the money, they were all there. So one night they asked me, Brother Hassanain, why don't you read Dua Kumail? I remember these are Arabs. These are experts in Arabic. Okay, I want you to understand.
Yeah.
Me, I'm just like, I'm thinking I'm the smartest guy who can read Arabic. So I go, I said, sure. So I take the Dua Kumail and I recite one Thursday night. And after I was done, so I'm in the car, the brother is sending me home. So I said to him, so what do you think of my Dua Kumail? He said, brother, you butchered it.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
He said, brother, you butchered it. And this is a brother who's very good in Arabic. He said, you butchered it. I said, what do you mean I butchered it? I thought I was good in this. He says, no, your pronunciation, your qaf, your ain, you're way off the mark. You're changing ta for ta and ta for, And I looked and said, what? So it's like I got hit with a bat on my head, you know, like criticism. Oh my God, I thought I was good. Guess what? I went home that summer and 24 hours a day, I was zoned in pronunciation.
MashaAllah.
My parents were getting annoyed with me because every time I said, no, it's not, you know, they said, come
That's
on.
like us Iraqis. Sorry, it's like us Iraqis telling Lebanese, don't butcher Quran, or when people pronounce my name, Barak, it's a qaf, not ka. Anyhow, that's just an inside Iraqi Lebanese thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or Ramadan and Ramzan.
Yeah, Ramazan. Yeah, or Allahu Akbar, you know?
Yeah,
You know, instead of Allahu Akbar. So anyway, I became so focused, zoned in. So what I did was that moment of criticism that was negative, I accepted it. And I said, that's an expert in Arabic. And if he thinks that I'm making a mistake, then I'm definitely making a mistake.
Yeah.
So I went home, I spent the entire summer listening to qaris, reciters, like Maytham Kadhim. I would listen to all the best reciters and I would follow them to the T. I said, I see why their inflection is this way. And, you know, their proprioception is such. I get it. Anyway, I went back the following year and I recited Dua Kumail again. And there were new Arabs who came who were not in the university, so they did not know me. So after I was done, they all came and started talking to me in Arabic. So the brother is smiling. He says, this brother doesn't speak Arabic. He says, Wallahi mi'a bil mi'a. This brother is an Arab. So I looked at the brother, I said, I'm not Arab. So the brother nudged me, he says, you see, your recitation was good. So they think you're an Arab. So he put a smile on my face. Of course, it still has room for correction. It's not perfect. I still make mistakes, even when I pronounce the Quran today. But I try my best to make sure. And when I get criticized by scholars, if somebody said, your mud here needs to be stretched a little bit better. You're right. Your ra needs to be, has to have a little depth, you know. So I listened to it and I said, yeah, that's good. So criticism is a positive thing.
Right.
And if somebody criticizes us, they're exposing something to us. Even at WISE, when some parents come and they say, we don't like WISE. I said, okay, why don't you like WISE? Everything is wrong.
Why are your kids here then? That's my answer back. Why'd you put your kids here then?
When somebody says that, they're not actually saying you're wrong. They're saying I'm angry and you are my first victim and I want to take my anger out on you. So I look at them and said, no problem. Welcome. Right? I don't even say anything to them. I said, no problem. Okay. So then they calm down. And then I say, okay, since everything is bad, okay, so is there anything I can do that's better? Can you help me get started with what's good in it? Right? And then of course, so now they start to, so when they do criticize to me, some of the staff members say, look at this person, they're criticizing WISE. I was defending WISE. I said, Alhamdulillah, but maybe what they're saying is not wrong. Maybe we can improve it. So if they're saying something and they're exposing something, maybe we should focus on it. Maybe tomorrow WISE will become a better institution if we focus on this criticism. And let's not put this person down. Maybe what they're saying is right. And subhanAllah, it has helped us tremendously. Because now we find when somebody says, Hajj, there's a problem. I need to talk to you about the way your teachers are doing something or the way you guys are doing the correct. I said, talk to me, sit, tell me, because I would love to hear it. And then I would tell, oh, that's great. You picked on it. We picked on it too. We're working on it. Oh, you know, we never thought of that. You're right. Oh my God. Let me put that in the agenda in my meeting so that my staff is aware of it. SubhanAllah. Yeah.
Somebody just mentioned the comment, you should tell our WISE students during prayer this story. Yes. A little comment there.
I do. Well, some of the stories I do tell them, but remember when I do lead prayers at WISE, the time is so short. There's only 5-7 minutes, 10 minutes, and then the kids have to participate too. So alhamdulillah.
And speaking of time, we've been going almost 2 hours. I'm okay to go for another 10-15 to wrap up because
we'll end in 5-10 minutes. Yes.
Inshallah. So somebody's asked, what about our moms? How do you deal with that respectfully? Because sometimes parents.
Look, first and foremost, our mothers are our mothers. Even if they are 99% wrong, they're our mothers. I look at my mother and she's my mother. First of all, understand that. And when you have, let's say, a friend, and the friend says, I'm sorry, I can't come because my mother doesn't want me to. And you know the mother is wrong. You don't say, oh, your mom is wrong. You know, you should come with me. No. Your mother said not to come, don't come. Even if she's 100% wrong, listen to her. It's fine. Because when you respect your mother, you're going to win her heart. When you win your mother's heart, be calm with it. Many a times I've said things to my mother because I think I'm right. And then she will come after it and she will attack it. And I'm realizing that maybe her perspective has a different angle, but she's my mother. So something in my mind says, shut your mouth, bite your tongue, and don't say anything. She's your mother. What's wrong with you? So, when did you become right? So I'm calm. I look at my mother. I said, yes, you're right. Yes. And then she comes, she looks at me, she says, and then suddenly she comes and starts to accept what I say now. What happened was the attitude changed her perspective. You know, mothers know that they're not always right. They know. Mothers know they're not always right. But for God's sakes, let's respect them. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَنْ لَا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. In Surah Luqman, Allah says, حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ وَفِصَالُهُ فِي عَامَيْنِ. The mother went pain upon pain, you know, for 2 years. Oh my God, can I ever pay her back? The Prophet said, if you tear your skin and make shoes for your parents and your mother, you can't pay her back. So stop. Number one, be respectful. I see many kids are very disrespectful to their mothers, very disrespectful to their fathers too. Even if the fathers are disrespectful, win their hearts. Yes, there are some parents who are very disrespectful to their children.
Well, let's be very blunt, Hajj. They're abusive. They've hit. They're using very harsh words that degrade. Yes. So there's a fine line with when parents speak harshly and when it gets to abuse. There's a different protocol, so to speak, to deal with abuse than there is with, let's say, the parents being very tough. So that has to be dealt in a different way. And we've spoken about that before, so we don't necessarily have to get into details here. But if there is violence and hitting, there needs to be community, there needs to be other people involved, because essentially we know the police and the Children's Aid Society could get involved and take the kids away. So we don't want that to happen. There has to be a reparenting, of course, with the parents, because there's also cultural discipline where in some of our cultures back home, per se, or older generations use hitting and spanking and whatnot as a form of discipline. We're not talking about that. We're talking about when parents, let's say, have had a bad day or they're very rough in their demeanor. The Hajj is talking about how to speak with that, recognize who you're speaking with, setting respectful boundaries and win them over to try and get to them, or get another adult to speak with them. Because we also have to be realistic. There are parents who don't respect the position that they are in, with all due respect. Yeah.
And you know, when parents, by the way, and I'm going to say this, if any parent is listening here, please don't ever spank or hit your child, please.
Yes.
You know, this can come under the garb of discipline. Okay, it's not. With all due respect, it's not. You're training the child that hitting or some kind of harm solves the problem. No, it has to be done in a judicious way. Harm in Islam has to be done by a shura, you know, it has to be done by hakim al-shari. It cannot be done in vigilante ways. A father or mother has no right to this. I know children who were raised with their fathers pulling the belts out and whipping them, and they have never forgotten until today. They're good kids, they're excellent, but they've never forgotten. The father is a good person. The father is a loving person. But I say to them, where did you learn how to pull this belt on? Yeah. It's honestly, in my opinion, it should be forbidden. Okay, talk to the child, reason with them. There are 1,001 ways to manage this problem.
And if you don't know, get some parenting courses, speak with somebody else to get that, or learn how to manage your anger, because that innocent child does not deserve the frustration of the bad day, or you lost your job, or you got in a fight with your spouse, or this and that. They're innocent to that, right?
Right. Now, the other point that I want to mention is the extremities. You know, when we talk about extreme, where parents are hurting their spouses, they're hurting their kids and beating them and so on. We're not talking about those extremities. If you want to go to the extreme, then let's talk about the Battle of Badr. They were sons fighting their fathers and fathers fighting their sons, and they had to kill them. How about Nuh alayhi salam is asking for his son? Allah says, "Inna laysa minni." He is not from you. And the son drowned while Nuh was watching his son drown. So those are extreme cases. And even under that case, you know, even for justice, if your child has committed a crime and you are the judge and your own son has murdered somebody willfully, you as the judge has to punish this child. You cannot say, "Oh, this is my child, I love them." No, Allah says, "Kunu qawwamina lillahi shuhada bil qist. ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على أن لا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى." maintain justice, even if you don't like it. That's the extreme case Quran is talking about. Here, typical mothers and fathers, alhamdulillah, the majority of the human race on earth has a level of love and compassion for their children, and children have a love and compassion for their parents. The majority. Out of the 8.5 billion people, 95% of them have that mentality. We're talking at that level. Right. And by the way, when does it become extreme? When we take these little levels and we abuse them, then it becomes extreme. All major crimes started with petty crimes.
Right.
You will never see somebody commit a major crime instantaneously. It's very rare. Major crimes are committed after the person has indulged in petty crimes for a long period of time. Because then
it builds up.
Yes, it takes you to the next level. So what we're talking about is, how do we stop this petty crime?
Inshallah. Hajj, people are just sending in all these questions. So here's what I'm going to suggest. If you like, send the questions over to my account and I will filter through them and send them to the Hajj. The ones that I can't answer and the ones that I can answer, I'll answer, inshallah. Hajj Hassanain, bless you. Thank you so much. People were quite engaged. They're asking for more and more of this type of interview discussion on topics with you again. So I'm putting you on the spot and saying, yes, inshallah, he shall. We'll see, inshallah.
It's our duty. Believe me, this is a blessing for us to be able to communicate and to share. It's not a copyrighted thing. It's not something to glorify oneself. Allah loves when people share their experiences, but for the betterment of each other, not to promote ourselves, but for the betterment of our lives and to bring harmony and to bring God consciousness. So in conclusion, I advise us all, be conscious of Allah. Ittaqillah. Please, I cannot stress. If you and I want to solve 99% of our problems that we have caused upon ourselves, hold on to Allah. Maintain your salah on time. Okay, embrace Ramadan with love. Cry when Ramadan leaves. Be happy when Ramadan comes. I see so many, Ramadan is here. Oh my God. Okay, I can't wait for the
less than 2 weeks left. I was so sad today when I realized that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Say, I can't go get my coffee every day. And I said, coffee?
Perspective.
You think Allah, when Allah instituted, He didn't know that you and I would be addicted to coffee. Stop your addictions. Come on, stop. Embrace
the opportunity.
Yeah, love it and embrace it. In Salah, you're fasting. And also, do your Maghrib and Isha when you're fasting. Don't eat and then go and then do your Salah.
I'm guilty of that. Sorry.
Then go break your fast.
I'm guilty of that. I do that.
Yeah, your fast starts with Salah. You know that in Fajr time, you start your fast with Salah.
Right.
End it with Salah. It's beautiful. It doesn't take long.
It's a beautiful way of looking at it.
It takes 5 minutes, but it's so... When I go and sit on the table to do in fact now, because of these nightly programs, I don't even break my fast till midnight.
I was going to ask you, how do you do that? Like the time is so short.
I drink water. We do this night program.
Yes.
And then I go home and I do my actual iftar. And I love it. Okay, I love it. I know, and I was thinking about it. I said, if I change my approach, where I start to dislike fasting and I start to dislike these difficulties and I start to dislike the timings and say, in Michigan, we break our fast at 9 p.m. People say, really, 9 p.m. that late? I said, yeah.
I get shocked,
The worst one was in Manchester. It started at past midnight and you broke your fast at 10 o'clock. So you had 2 hours only, right? And I loved it. I said, Alhamdulillah, no problem. What I'm trying to say is, and I would be on the same group that hates it. I'm a human being too. I have the right to hate things too, right? But it's how you approach it. If you approach it, it's like you meet a person and if you embrace them with love, you will learn to love them more. But if you say, I don't like humans, I don't like women, I don't like kids, every kid that'll come to you will bother you. Every woman who comes to you will bother you. Every man who comes to you will bother you because you've already set your mind to reject. Don't reject, embrace, and embrace the rahmah of Allah. Yeah. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us tranquility, success, and we will glow in the glory of God, and we will grow in the glory of God. May Allah give us the tawfiq, inshallah. Thank you, Sister Barak.
Inshallah. Bless you, Hajj. Bless you. Thank you. Inshallah, we can do more. And I just wanted to remind those who are joining in, If you want more of Hajj Hassanain and his talks and the other panels, he actually does a nightly program on Enlight TV on YouTube, Enlight.tv on YouTube. So check it. I'm actually joining in tonight. So please come on nightly to these beautiful talks, because there's dua ahead of time, dua iftitah, there's a Quran, and then the topic the Hajj discusses, and there are other panels, experts that come and have these discussions. So thank you so much, Hajj, for your beautiful inspiration, helping people learn how to set boundaries for themselves, standing up for themselves, learning how to be assertive rather than aggressive. These are important things that we covered today as well. Learning what bullying, harassment, and slander is from an Islamic perspective, from a Quranic perspective, but also from a mental well-being perspective, which is what we hope to normalize and get people to talk more about these topics. I also want to just give a quick shout out for Bronze Digital for making the amazing posters. They saw these programs they were doing a while back, and they offered and came and said, we want to do these posters for you guys. So a big shout out for our community who are always supporting the different projects that we're doing around mental health, alhamdulillah. And so come join us at around 10 o'clock Eastern time with the Hajj again. I think we have to go and get our iftars ready now. So thank you so much, Hajj. Bless you. I'll speak to you in about 2 hours, inshallah. And bless you again, Hajj. Take care, Ma'jurin, inshallah, wa taqabbal Allah.
May Allah bless you all. My prayers are for your success. Those of you who are not feeling well, we make dua in these important nights, especially the nights of Laylatul Qadr. As you know, Imam Ali alayhi salam was struck in these nights of the 19th, which is tonight. So for some people tonight, for some people tomorrow.
Tuesday.
And make sure you do the dhikr for these nights of Qadr and beg from Allah, and 100% Allah listens, 100% Allah replies. And whatever we get, we ask Allah to give us the best, inshallah. May Allah bless you all. Thank you. Wassalamu
alaikum assalam. For people who are asking where you can watch this, you can go on the YouTube and Facebook, the Muslim Counselor, it's all there.
Yeah.
For this one specifically, but the ones for the, this one, they said, where can we see it? And the Muslim Counselor, but Hajj, please, the ones for tonight.
Inshallah. Very good.
The ones that you're presenting is on
Enlight.tv. If you go on Enlight.tv website, it gets broadcasted there live, and it's also on YouTube.
Inshallah. Again, thank you very much, Hajj. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Assalamu alaikum. Bless you too.
Allah bless you.